May 2026. What a bloodbath for tech workers. 8,000 axed at Meta, 4,000 at Cisco, 3,000 at Intuit. All told, the technology sector announced 38,000 job cuts in May alone. It was the highest monthly total in a year that's already seen over 120,000 tech jobs evaporate. And we're only 6 months in. There were 125,000 tech layoffs in all of 2025. The headlines say that it's AI signing those pink slips. For a while, many dismissed this as an excuse used by companies who had overhired during COVID. But as the layoffs continue and hiring freezes, the chatter across the tech forums is sounding more worried and angry that it is truly AI taking people's jobs. What only quietly gets reported, though, is that the companies doing these so-called AI layoffs are simultaneously receiving visa approvals for thousands upon thousands of H1B workers. The running joke is that AI stands for, actually, Indians, rather than artificial intelligence. Take a look at 2025. Financially troubled Intel laid off 27,000 people, yet it still managed to need 2,000 H1B workers. IBM, 15,600 layoffs. It also needed 2,000 H1Bs. The pattern repeats for nearly all the big names: Oracle, Google, Microsoft, Meta, and Amazon. Amazon is especially egregious. It laid off 14,000 people in 2025. That same year, it and its subsidiaries received 19,000 H-1B approvals. In fact, Amazon has topped the charts for the last 6 years, every year receiving at least 10,000 H-1B approvals across its companies. In total, over 135,000 H-1Bs were approved in 2025 for the top 100 technology, finance, and consulting companies. 2024 was similar, and as of March 2026, we were at 50K. So that gives us a total of over 323,000 H-1B approvals in the last 3 years. This makes me absolutely livid. I had no idea the scale of the invasion. Sure, many of the layoffs we've seen are H-1Bs themselves. An H-1B approval doesn't necessarily mean new hire. But when job loss burns through an industry at the rate we're seeing, then the number of new and continuing H-1Bs should be exactly fucking zero. The purpose of the H-1B program was to allow U.S. employers to hire foreign workers on a temporary basis in jobs that require exceptional ability. But in practice, the program functions as a bridge to cheap, long-term employment. It's effectively a pipeline from temporary worker to permanent temporary worker. H-1Bs are valid for 3 years and can be continued for up to 6 years. However, it is a dual intent visa, which means the worker can begin the application process for permanent residency while on an H-1B. During that time, they can receive renewable 3-year extensions, allowing them to work legally in the U.S. for years or even decades while waiting for a green card, ipso facto displacing Americans in the process. 65% of H-1B workers hold a computer-related job. Over 70% are Indian. I want to focus on that cohort. Have you ever worked with an Indian H-1B? Now listen, YouTube censors, I'm sure there are plenty of great Indian H-1Bs out there, but in my experience, the only exceptional ability they have is in butchering the English language. In the workplace, many lack creativity and innovation, are paralyzed when given a project without a strict spec sheet, protect their positions, and their poor communication skills add time to every task and meeting as you try to translate their pidgin English. Part of this might be cultural, and part of it might stem from the fact that H-1B fraud is rampant. Many Indians applying for work visas have forged computer science degrees, degrees with no programming coursework, or little to no programming skills or experience in general. I hear you asking, then how could they possibly work at a big tech firm? I think there are a few explanations. The first is that Indian managers hire Indian workers. It's an open secret that many Indian managers favor and promote South Asian applicants. As they've infiltrated the tech bureaucracy over the decades, some Indian managers have created ethnic hiring networks that tacitly favor even poorly qualified Indian workers. I've seen this with my own eyes. It happens slowly over years. 1 H-1B becomes 2, becomes 4, becomes your entire dev team, and suddenly you realize you're hearing Hindi a dozen times a day. Cash for jobs in these hiring networks is also common. It's called rishwat, a type of bribery pervasive in Indian culture. Building off that hiring bias, it's possible that Indian H-1Bs know just enough to get by. Give them a tight spec sheet and a code base heavy in the design patterns they drilled at Chennai's Anna University, and those exaggerated skills on the resume allow them to fake it until they make it, especially if their role is rote maintenance of an existing code base where senior developers can fix their fuck-ups. Then you have contractors. Contracting companies employing H-1Bs show their A-team up front when the contracts get signed, then quickly pass the work off to the grunts who are less capable, responsible, and dedicated. Finally, the tech industry is still infested with the wokeism that subconsciously overlooks white for brown whenever possible. Merit and skill, let alone nationalism, don't mean much when your company is marinating in social justice. Tech companies crying about a lack of American talent has always been bullshit. For example, if we use a comp sci degree as a measure of talent, then between 2016 and 2023, there were 838,000 American computer science grads. Yet during the same period, 833,000 foreign computer workers were imported through just 3 guest worker programs. That's a 1-to-1 ratio. But as they say in this article, those are foreigners guaranteed jobs before any Americans walk across the stage for their diploma. Offshoring adds insult to injury. Tech is sidestepping the fees and restrictions the Trump administration imposed on guest worker visas by returning to the tried and true method of shipping jobs overseas. 10% of Microsoft's 250,000 employees are now based in India. The company plans a $3 billion investment in the country over the next 2 years. Google employs 14,000 in India, and this year announced adding another 20,000. IBM takes the cake, though. 43% of its workforce is now in India, up from 1/3 a decade ago. When nearly half its employees are in India, can we even consider IBM an American company anymore? There's been a lot of talk about the enshittification of software over the last decade. I always chalked enshittification up to the advent of JavaScript everywhere, all the time. But now I'm starting to wonder how much of it has to do with H-1Bs and outsourcing. Has Windows 11 sucked ass for 5 years because they have all the H-1Bs assigned to it? Food for thought, I guess. Despite the current efforts of the Trump administration and congressmen like Ellie Crane to reform the H-1B system, I think things are going to get worse for American coders, not because H-1Bs can't be reformed, but because big tech has a secret weapon now. Take a frontier coding agent like Claude, team it up with a mediocre H-1B programmer, and voila, you can meet all your sloppy software needs for the next couple of years, right up until AIs are good enough to replace Americans, Indians, Chinese, and all the rest. I'm pretty pessimistic when it comes to AI and the future of the American software developer. There's going to be more layoffs, and I don't think there's going to be a rebound, ever. That doesn't anger me. Industries change. People have to adapt. What pisses me off is that adaptation period could be a lot less painful if big tech wasn't allowed to turn on the foreign workers spigot until the pool of unemployed Americans was drained. Representative Crane's bill looks strong. I would like to see longer moratoriums on new H-1Bs, plus immediate revocation of existing H-1Bs and the visas that allow them to bring in their families. But I'll take what I can get. Either way, the tech companies will scream industry collapse. But we can safely ignore them because they've already told us that AI is here to save the day, right? If it turns out that AI really ain't up to snuff, well, they'll have 250,000 newly unemployed coders they can rehire. Hopefully this time the majority of them will be Americans. And hey, an added benefit might be that the housing market in Seattle and San Francisco suddenly opens wide as all the temporary workers who strangely managed to buy permanent houses are forced to sell and fly back to Bangalore with their fake degrees.